At the end of Nigel Mansell's American adventure, time for reflection. 12 months ago, Nigel captured his second major title in successive seasons on different continents, an unprecedented achievement. The IndyCar Championship hard on the heels of the Formula One title.
Nigel, after your championship success of 1993, what was your mood as you went into the winter testing program?
I think very buoyant, very bullish, very happy after all these years to see a red #1 on the car. But I wouldn't say confident, but we're certainly optimistic that we'd be competitive in the new season.
Now, you put a lot of pressure on Lola to put a transverse box on the car, which Penske had been using in 1993. And in the winter testing, you and the team were raving about the new car. How much better, looking back, was it than the 1993 car?
Well, it's no question that it was a second to second and a half a lap quicker on most places where we had tested. But the problem was that we didn't appreciate how far Penske's would move forward. And we arrived whereby we weren't as competitive as we thought we might be, and in fact we were a little way behind them.
The now traditional curtain raiser to the IndyCar season, not in the States but in Australia. Defending champion Nigel Mansell captured the pole. Michael Andretti, back from Formula One, was hoping his IndyCar career would take off again.
I think Surface Paradise is an extraordinary circuit where you have to have a lot of commitment. You have to overcommit your car into the corners to go around the corners, and that's where Michael Andretti in the Reynard chassis, I mean, he overcommitted his car on a number of corners, and you saw it airborne 5 foot in the air, and it still didn't break. He hit walls, he hit tyres, he pulled tyres out of the corner, and it still didn't break the car, and he went on to win.
Nigel led the race initially, but then handling problems became acute. As a result of the spin, he dropped to 8th. But Andretti rode his luck, surviving one huge slide and going on to take victory in a surreal atmosphere as the sun set.
Michael Andretti wins the Australian Grand Prix IndyCar race.
Second race of the season, and Nigel with distinctly unhappy memories of Phoenix last year.
Were you able to feel comfortable on the Phoenix circuit?
Do you know, I think I can say this now because I'm not going to go on an oval again in the near foreseeable future, shall I say. I don't think you ever feel comfortable on an oval. I certainly don't. You go on an oval and you're committing yourself going into corners at 200 miles an hour. And you're going into the corners committing yourself whereby you brake very gingerly and you try and carry your speed as fast as you can around that corner. And you know if anything goes wrong, whether you have a tyre go down, you have a suspension problem, or you have a little bit of oversteer, or the car gets loose, as they say in America, you're going to have a monumental accident. So I think, no, I'd say you don't really feel comfortable.
Not surprisingly, on ovals there's no runoff area at the top of the banking. When Hiro Matsushita and Paul Tracy tangled, the debris was strewn across the track, right into the path of the rapidly approaching Jacques Villeneuve.
You could have had 2 or 3 drivers killed at that accident. And where Jacques Villeneuve hit Hiro's car was right in the middle between the engine and the bulkhead of the car, which just split the car clean in half. 12 inches this way, it would have killed Hiro, and probably would have injured very severely Jacques. And this way, 12 inches, Jacques would have lost his legs because he would have hit the engine solid. And as it happened, when the engine spun off, poor Tracy was getting out of his Penske, and the gearbox and the engine flew past his body and just missed him.
Erasing the memories of his own 1993 crash, Nigel charged to a strong third-place finish at the end of 200 laps of the 1-mile oval. But ominously, the Penskes performed superbly. Emerson Fittipaldi first, ahead of teammate Al Unser Jr. The first real indication of just how much progress the Penske team had made during the closed season. From Arizona to California, from an oval to a street circuit, Mansell matched the Penskes for speed and challenged in second.
We had quite a good race at Long Beach, and we could have possibly conceivably won, but when I was lapping Michael Andretti and I was catching Emerson, so I had to sort of lift a little bit. And then Michael, as he's shown so many times this year, has a problem running into people at the back, and he punctured my tyre. And without the punctured tyre, we probably should have won it.
Alonso Jr., first and still king of Long Beach. Despite some lean years in his career, he still managed to win at the beach 5 times.
Alonso Jr. is the winner in the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach. And here is Nigel Mansell, comes toward the flag and picks up second place.
The major race of the year, Indianapolis at the end of May. The prize, the Borg-Warner Trophy.
Last year you had this terrible pain that you were in preparation for the event. This year with full fitness, were you able to appreciate the magic that is Indianapolis a bit more?
Yes, I mean, I'm very grateful that I've had the opportunity to go to Indianapolis a couple of times, because now, you know, you see through all the veneer, you see through all the excitement, and you know what hard work goes behind sort of getting the job done or trying to get the job done. And I was very lucky in the race, as we all know, when we were under a caution yellow for 1 3/4 laps, that I didn't actually have my head taken off, and that my career wasn't brought to a sudden end by someone making a very, very stupid and very serious mistake.
Alonso Jr. repeated his triumph of 1992. On the Milwaukee Mile, a week after the Indy 500, Nigel with hopes of repeating his sensational victory here in 1993. Again a race that started promisingly. Again a battle with Michael Andretti. Again Nigel won that decisively. But again, the car's handling deteriorated, and nothing could be done to improve matters in the pits. And as the rain started, the race finished anticlimactically under yellow caution flags, but gloriously for Penske, with a 1-2-3.
I think it was by about this time that we all realized that, you know, the step that we thought that we'd made over the winter with the new car and everything, we knew it wasn't enough. I mean, Penske was just running on a different part of the racetrack to everyone else. And if you look at Penske with the team to beat, you knew then that you weren't going to beat them. And so everybody sort of took a huge swallow, I think, at this time of the year and said, oh dear.
Back to the streets. Nigel taking pole position with a brilliant qualifying lap, but the race was a different story.
There's been certain racetracks where I've out-qualified the same maker chassis by almost 2 seconds a lap. But then come the race, reality sets in. And I'll never forget in Detroit, on the first lap I was in the lead, coming out of a tight right-hander, going down the short straight, as they call a short chute, into another right-hander. I came off the corner and I was flat out, and then I saw this red and white car pull up alongside me and just go past. And I just said, I don't believe this. I was flat out, but he came around the corner, I would say 20% quicker than I did, and just got the jump on me down the short chute straight, and that was it. That was history.
Another Penske victory parade appeared imminent until the over-adventurous Paul Tracy intervened.
Whoa! He got tagged. Alonso Jr. tagged from behind. Paul Tracy was the culprit, and that sent him off into the barrier.
Disappointment, too, for Nigel Mansell as he slowed to a halt.
And there it is. The twin checkered flags come out, and Paul Tracy takes the win. Today will be the first time that Penske cars have won 5 races in a row.
Qualifying at Portland went well for 59.5 minutes.
Now in Portland, you had the pole right up to the very last minute when Al Jr. pipped you. And the next Lola was Robbie Gordon way back in 7th place. How much were you having to hustle that car that day?
Oh, incredibly so. And again, it just showed we had a number of poles then, starting in Portland, that we were there for the last minute. And I think at that particular circuit, I think Little Al got me in the last 30 seconds. But it was just indicative how the year was going to go from there on in.
So another victory for Penske, another first place for Al Unser Jr., rapidly emerging as the strongest competitor of the three in the Dream Team in his debut season for Roger Penske. The man himself, overshadowed by Nigel Mansell and Newman Haas in 1993, enjoyed being back in the limelight again. Nigel narrowly lost out to Robbie Gordon on the line as they disputed 4th and 5th place. And victory extended Al Unser Jr.'s lead at the top of the table.
Now, immediately after Portland, you flew back to Brands Hatch for that extraordinary day of testing. How much did you then enjoy your weekend in France, your guest appearance?
That was a fabulous weekend. Very, very fond memories. Very sad finish, but looking at the overall thing, I'll give myself a 9 out of 10 for the whole weekend. To go there and be on the front row of the grid and virtually on pole position for the last couple of minutes, phenomenal. To make Damon work harder than he's ever worked, as such, to try and get pole and see a desperate bid out of the last corner, because I watched it over the curb and all the rest of it, and to gain just that split second more, I said to myself afterwards, well, I should have done that.
'94, reminiscent of '93. Emo against Nigel.
Now, in Cleveland, you and Emma had another great scrap, rather, again, evocative of last year. You finished second. Would you say that was perhaps your best run of the year?
It probably was. I mean, I drove an incredible, strong race there. We found something with the car whereby I could do certain things with it. And, you know, we had a very exciting tussle with the Penskes.
Here's Nigel setting himself up on Tracy. Slower cars just ahead.
Now you can watch. Nigel captured him, pushed him over, used the traffic to hold Tracy in, got right by, as you can see there, the white number 1.
Hopes of challenging for the lead were dashed when Nigel scraped the wall, enough of a setback to prevent him winning. So the honours went to Penske and Al Unser Jr. The Penske camp celebrated yet again. Across the border to Paul Tracy territory.
The improvement you made to the car showed in qualifying in Toronto.
Yeah, we fought off the Penskes and we were swapping pole position for a period of time, and then I pushed a little too hard going into the final turn coming into the straight, and I just caught the tyre barrier on the left-hand side and had the wheel twisted out my arm and then straight into the tyres. Yeah, we were going really well in the race. Robbie got a puncture, then I got a puncture. Then we had some other problems with the car, and unfortunately had to retire the car.
The checkered flag. Michael Andretti has won his second race of the IndyCar season.
Michigan, the other 500 on the calendar, but just as tough.
Now, Michigan must have been one of the high points of the season. You were on pole position, and in practice you had a time, let's just savor these numbers, 235.639 miles an hour, the fastest ever lap of a racetrack.
Yeah, we got the most perfect computer printout, where we were flat out in 1, 2, 3, and 4. And, you know, to have a computer printout which shows that you didn't come off the throttle for 2 laps. And we did the most perfect lap that you could do, which was the fastest lap ever in history. It's quite phenomenal. We had a fabulous start to the race. We took the race by the scruff of its neck in the first 20 laps, and then bingo, something else hit you.
I tell you, I'm pretty scared. We're going into 1, you have to brake real hard to get the thrust to come back. I can't get my foot round it. Is there anything you can do?
There's a butterfly in the plenum chamber of the engine, that is, and the mechanism broke, and so the throttle decided to stick wide open going into turn 1, and it just felt like someone hit me up the back when I came off the throttle because it was still flat out. And I had a few exciting moments over the next 10 laps trying to fix it. We made 2 or 3 extra pit stops trying to fix it, and unfortunately it was actually inside the engine that the problem was, and we just couldn't drive it, so that was it, end of story.
But a great ending for Canadian Scott Goodyear, the second win of his 7-year career. The first was also at Michigan. All around the paddock, influential observers felt that eventually fortune had to smile on Nigel and Newman House.
Tell us about your weekend in Mid-Ohio, Nigel.
Well, I mean, it's a great racetrack, very challenging, very demanding, but of course it's a track where the Penske's showed the dominance again. And when you think on a racetrack like that they could lap the field, it just points out that they're in a class of their own.
In a class of their own for speed, and importantly for reliability. A phenomenal effort by the Penske team to have 3 cars running so consistently well. The feature of Nigel's Mid-Ohio race was the battle with Raoul Boesel. Advantage Nigel. But at the checkered flag, it was another Penske 1-2-3. Alonso Jr., the winner, extending his championship lead. Loudon, New Hampshire. Nigel anticipating another battle with the Penskes, but not expecting a tangle with Mario.
Do you think, in retrospect, that the Penskes were more beatable than the record books will show?
There was some racetracks where we seemed to be able to compete, and Loudon was a very good example, but unfortunately my teammate either didn't see me coming up on the inside or just thought we could both get round the corner, which obviously wasn't the fact.
Manson has clearly passed Mario. Mario obviously doesn't see him. I presume he didn't see him. Moves down.
Well, we saw it. Mario's okay. Thank goodness he's okay. I just couldn't believe he tried to outbrake me.
We had some good settings on some circuits which made us more competitive with them, but we never dominated them like they dominated us. So when they got their cars working good, they could be so much faster.
Even when the Penskes didn't out-qualify everyone else, it took them little time in the race to demonstrate superiority. The race also saw a spectacular crash for Scott Sharp in the Pac West car. Sharp came away from the accident totally unscathed. No luck, though, for Nigel. Again in the pits and out of contention. Another frustrating retirement. The first win of 1994 so elusive. And the Penskes went into victory formation once more. Alonso Jr. taking the checkered flag and looking the likely champion. The season into its final quarter. Back to Canada for one of the most controversial races of the year.
Now, you had a good run at Vancouver. You led the most laps in the race. But it was one of the worst races for driver behaviour, with fines being doled out left, right and centre. What was the cause of all that?
We were something like about 6 to 8 seconds ahead with only sort of about 20 laps left. And we came in for our last splash and go. And I had passed a parked car for 4 or 5 laps previously. And we had to come in on this final lap to have a quick splash and go. And then as I was coming out the pits, I put the yellow flag out. And then the pace car caught me just as I came out the pits. But then everybody else was able to do another lap, come into the pits under the yellow, fuel, and then come out and stack up behind us. So I went from first place down to about 9th place. It was a joke. And that's where some of the regulations work for you, and some of the regulations work against you. And I'll tell you, Vancouver, for one, was probably the biggest disappointment of a race I've had, because the Newman House team did a superb job all weekend. Our car was really good there. We got it really, as I say over here, hooked up. And, you know, one of the restarts had little Al behind me, and I left him. There was no problem. And then to lose the race, and then ultimately then have to come in together with Emerson on the last lap on the last corner, it was just a great shame.
And Nigel Mansell gets together with Fittipaldi, and that's going to devastate a 4th and 5th place finish and bring Scott Goodyear forward into 4th.
And Alonso Jr. reeled off a hat-trick of wins, with Robbie Gordon coming through to 2nd to equal the best finish of his career. Three races to go. Alonso Jr. looking certain of the title. Nigel determined to pull off a victory.
Now at Elkhart, again, you had a very good handling car, but then down on power. What happened there?
The problem we had there is that the last 15, 20 minutes of qualifying, the engine blew. So we couldn't qualify. So we dropped to third on the grid. Then in the race, with great regret, our Ford power plant got a misfire on the second lap. So then it showed on the computer we were 4 to 5 miles an hour slower down every straight. And it's okay if you can actually have a slingshot at the corner and no one holds you up. But then if someone holds you up and you're accelerating, whoever is behind, if their engine's working properly because the straights are so long, they're just going to slip straight past you and you're gone, your history. And that was another huge disappointment because I really felt that we could have won Elkhart Lake and won it strongly.
The Penske sequence of wins was broken at Elkhart Lake by Rookie of the Year Jacques Villeneuve, son of the late Gilles, the legendary Ferrari Formula One driver. A first win for Jacques and for his team, Forsyth Green. And a second championship title for Al Unser Jr. He won his first 4 years ago. 3 Penske drivers in the top 4. A dream season for the dream team. The penultimate race of the season in Mario Andretti's adopted hometown. A special arrivederci to one of the all-time greats on his last appearance at Nazareth.
Now, Nazareth had a lot of happy memories for you from last year, but everyone this year seemed to have problems with setup.
I came in the pits 3 extra times and we took 6 holes of front wing out, which would basically put the wing plates down. And, you know, it shouldn't oversteer at all, but it still was.
A minute, go 2 holes left. 2 holes left on the front wing. It's that bad.
A second win for Penske's Paul Tracy following his win at Detroit. An end-of-term atmosphere in California as IndyCar racing said farewell to Nigel and to Mario. But Paul Tracy was staying, having turned down a move to Formula One. He won his second race in succession for Penske. Next year, he'll be with Newman Haas. Checkered flags called a halt to the season dominated by Penske. Their drivers finished first, second and third. Nigel having to settle for 8th. Not a glorious second season, but how the IndyCar Championship has benefited from his presence.
I'm very proud, very privileged to have had 2 exciting years here with Carl Haas and Paul Newman. Very sad, very happy.
So the end of one chapter, the beginning of another. Back at Formula One for the final 3 races of the season, Red 2 bound to be a front runner.